Have you been hearing any of the previous things?
Yes, I was here early and I was listening.
So I don't have to ask you all the same questions I've asked the other ones.
I don't know.
But basically, the thrust of my questions are, the arts are really important to New York's economy, and we treat them rather shabbily. The city gives much less money to them percentage-wise than other major cities. Other major cities are even doing things to lure artists away from the city that most people associate with the arts. Right now, we are the world's greatest arts center. So, as mayor, are you willing to make some kind of major commitment to supporting the arts? We're asking for 1% of the city's total budget, a lot less than the city gives to keep banks in the city.
I already commit to that 1%. My name is Erick Salgado. Thank you all for inviting me over here. In fact, my campaign manager, Edwin Marcial, he's the president of the Modern Puerto Rican Theater in El Barrio. Please, I want him to stand up. And I do understand the essential importance to have these art programs in place in our city, especially when it comes to our children educational. New York City right now is not a melting pot anymore. It's a collection of different communities with different culture, and that's how we could preserve our culture, how could we reflect, and how could we also keep our children occupied in good things. I thank God I got 6 children, 4 of them, they play different instruments. They do it for the church, but I'm proud of them, and I have to spend my own money to actually make sure that they get this kind of education, because currently right now it's very difficult to find program in different communities. One of the ideas that I have is, because when it comes to the community-based organization, the non-for-profit organization, they are more than eager to help the different community, but the number one obstacle that they have is location. It's so difficult to actually finance a location to do many cultural program in the city, but we have the location. We have 1,745 school buildings that are not being used after 3 o'clock, after 5 o'clock in the weekends. So one of the plans I have is to actually run a program where all the community-based organization and non-for-profit organization could have access to this school building to actually provide this program to the different community. We have to make sure that our young people are occupied in this program and not on the street where they are occupied doing other things and getting in trouble.
Well, the young people are really Kurt's province. I'm talking about the older people who also want to partake of the arts and live through participation in the arts and find it really difficult here.
The school building could be used for many things. If you have a non-for-profit organization that is promoting art, it could be for a child, for an adult, for elderly. If you give them access to our school facility in non-school hour, that's going to be very beneficial for all community. We have the building. We have to even keep the air condition on at night in this building. Might as well use it in non-school hours.
Would you be willing to produce and fund a comprehensive cultural plan for New York City which engages all branches of government and calls for interagency participation?
Definitely, and well, we also have to make sure that the resources are actually spread throughout the city, throughout the big organization and also the small organization, because it's getting very difficult for small organizations to get access to this grant and to these resources that the city has. It's always the same organization that getting the benefit, but we have to make sure that all organizations get benefit, because the city changed a lot. I mean, my father came to New York City in 1926. I was born here in 1970, although they took me to Puerto Rico, and then I came back when I was 17. But I see the city change to different stages, and we have to make sure that every time the city change, it could be the demographic, the sub-demographic, that all these programs, the new programs that are basically coming because of the necessity of a new community arising or new population arising in the city, they also get access to this funding as well.
You want to use schools after hours for nonprofit cultural organizations because, as you say, they're there and not necessarily being used at night. But what about schools during the day as schools? For instance, charter schools have doubled in the last 4 years. They are growing tremendously. Now 5% of New York City children go to charter schools. Should that continue to double? Should it be 10% in another 4 years?
Well, I'm for charter school. I believe that there is not a problem if they save in the city thousands of dollars, and the parent, they should have a choice for their own children. In fact, for people who are actually financing the education of the children, I'm for to give them a tax deduction from the real estate taxes, because if they're not utilizing the $20,000 that costs for the education of their own child, at least they should get a tax credit to the real estate taxes for the good job that they're doing actually by funding their children. I'm a successful person. I'm not a billionaire like John Castellaneta, that's for sure. But people think that when you send your children to a private school, I was raised in public school in Puerto Rico and here in New York. But I also decide, it was my choice to send my children to an evangelical school, and I did an effort. People tend to think that when you send your children to private school is because you are rich, and that's not the reality. Many people do it for many reasons, and if they're not utilizing the $20,000 that costs for the children's education, at least they should get an incentive by getting a tax credit.
That's interesting. I mean, that's a different way of talking about vouchers, really, isn't it? For private
Yeah, voucher right now through we had to go through the state legislator, and they have their own disclosure with the blame amendment that the parochial school they don't apply. But I decide I'm running for mayor. First of all, my commitment is with the people of the city of New York. If I could do that to the real estate taxes, then I don't have to bother with Albany. We could do it locally over here.
Okay, again, you want to use public school buildings at night for other cultural, not-for-profit purposes. You want to give parents sending their kids not to public schools a financial incentive for that. Again, I'm interested in schools, and particularly arts education. That's one of our focuses.
Yes. Well,
I mean, like, for instance, 20% of schools have no full-time art teacher whatsoever in New York City. Half of schools have no full-time music teacher. I know, as other candidates have said, it's dangerous to commit to a number or a fact, but are 20% with no arts teacher and 50% with no music teacher? What should those percentages be?
No, I believe that in our Department of Education, first of all, I remember when I used to go to school over here in IS 88 in Brooklyn, they used to teach, all these kind of art programs, and it was good. I mean, I didn't learn nothing in school, regardless to art, because I took shop and I do all the things. But we had to bring those programs. In fact, one of the things and I'm proposing in regard of the dropout age, it needs to be raised from 16 to 18. Many of our children right now, with the consent of the parent, your children could basically go to the street of New York at the age of 16. It is unacceptable. They should be occupying the school. There should be different programs to keep the kids basically motivated to continue on studying. And also, one of the things I want to do, we have to concentrate in more vocational school, because especially on children among minority, they have a situation that sometimes they need to go to work right at the age of 18 because the parent, they're going through financial struggle. So we have to make sure that those children that are mindset to actually go to the productive life at the age of 18, they have the choice, they have the opportunity to be prepared in a vocational school. So we have to definitely work in more vocational school, and definitely art in our school is a necessity, it's not a luxury.
Mr. Salgado, thank you very much.
I thank you all.